The sun beat down on my back as I trimmed the hedges lining my property. It was a Saturday ritual, a way to unwind after a long week at the firm. But even the rhythmic snip of the shears couldn't quite drown out the gnawing unease that had taken root in my gut ever since Karen Henderson, the HOA president, moved in next door. From the moment my family and I moved into this suburban oasis, Karen had made it abundantly clear that we didn't belong. It started small, nitpicking about the precise shade of our mailbox, demanding we move our trash cans from view an hour earlier than anyone else, sending passive-aggressive emails about the length of our grass, which, I meticulously maintained, was always within the required specifications. I tried to brush it off, attributing it to garden-variety HOA overreach, something everyone complains about. But there was an edge to her interactions, a barely concealed disdain that chilled me to the bone. My wife, Sarah, a brilliant architect with an uncanny ability to read people, saw it immediately. "Frank, she doesn't like us," she declared one evening, after Karen had stopped by, ostensibly to clarify a minor landscaping detail. "It's more than just HOA rules. It's personal." I initially dismissed her concerns. I didn't want to believe that bigotry could fester so openly in our seemingly progressive community. I wanted to believe in the inherent goodness of people, even someone as abrasive as Karen. I had fought too hard, overcome too many obstacles, to let the prejudice of one narrow-minded individual cloud the joy of providing a comfortable life for my family. We had finally achieved the American dream, a beautiful home, a thriving career, a safe neighborhood for our children, Maya and David. I wasn't about to let Karen Henderson steal that from us. Still, the incidents kept piling up. Anonymous complaints about noise, even though we were always conscientious of our neighbors, thinly veiled accusations of violating HOA guidelines we'd never even heard of. The atmosphere grew increasingly tense, a constant low hum of anxiety that permeated our daily lives. Then came the whispers. A neighbor, Mrs. Rodriguez, a kind, elderly woman who lived across the street, confided in Sarah that she'd overheard Karen making disparaging remarks about those people and their lowering property values. While she wouldn't repeat the exact words, the implication was clear. It wasn't about the lawn or the mailbox, it was about the color of our skin. I tried to reason with Karen, to appeal to her sense of fairness. I even invited her over for coffee, hoping to bridge the gap with civility. But my efforts were met with cold indifference and thinly veiled hostility. Her eyes, a glacial blue, seemed to pierce right through me, conveying a message that transcended words: "You are not welcome here." The weight of it all began to chip away at my resolve. The dream home started to feel like a gilded cage. The fear that my children would be subjected to the same prejudice I had endured growing up became a constant companion. I knew something had to give. I just didn't know how explosive that something would be. The feeling of dread was rising, and I knew in my gut that Karen was about to escalate her campaign of harassment. I just didn't know how horrifically she would do it. The days that followed were a whirlwind of activity. Insurance adjusters, police investigators, and news reporters descended upon our home. The story of the cement pool incident went viral, sparking outrage and condemnation across social media. Karen Henderson became the face of modern-day prejudice, her actions a stark reminder of the deep-seated racial tensions that still simmer beneath the surface of American society. I, on the other hand, became an accidental symbol of resilience. People from all walks of life reached out to offer their support, sending messages of encouragement, donating to online fundraisers to help cover the cost of the pool repairs, and even volunteering their time to clean up the mess. The outpouring of solidarity was overwhelming, a testament to the inherent goodness of humanity. But amid the well-wishes and the media frenzy, I knew that this was more than just a public relations battle. This was a legal war, and I needed to be prepared. I contacted my former law school classmate, David Thompson, a brilliant litigator who specialized in civil rights cases. David was incensed by what had happened and immediately agreed to represent us. He assembled a team of lawyers and investigators, determined to uncover the full extent of Karen Henderson's prejudice and hold her accountable for her actions. David and his team dug deep, meticulously examining Karen's social media accounts, her emails, and her HOA records. What they discovered was chilling. Karen was not just a disgruntled neighbor, she was a member of a known white supremacist group. Her online activity was filled with racist rhetoric, hateful memes, and thinly veiled threats against minorities. She had been systematically targeting black families in the neighborhood, using her position as HOA president to harass and intimidate them. The evidence was damning, a clear indication that the cement incident was not an isolated act of vandalism but a calculated hate crime. David knew that we had a strong case, but he also knew that Karen would fight back with every resource at her disposal. The legal battle was complex and multifaceted. We filed a civil suit against Karen for property damage, emotional distress, and violation of our civil rights. We also worked with the local district attorney to press criminal charges against her for hate crime and vandalism. The stakes were high, not just for my family, but for the entire community. We had to send a clear message that hate had no place in our society and that those who perpetrate it would be held accountable to the fullest extent of the law. The discovery process was grueling. We spent countless hours poring over documents, answering interrogatories, and preparing for depositions. Karen's lawyers, a team of slick, high-priced attorneys, tried to paint her as a victim, claiming that she was simply a concerned citizen who had been unfairly targeted by a politically correct society. They attempted to deflect attention from her racist ideology by focusing on trivial details and personal attacks. But David and his team were relentless. They skillfully exposed Karen's lies, presented irrefutable evidence of her bigotry, and systematically dismantled her defense. The pressure mounted, both in and out of the courtroom. We received threatening letters and phone calls. Our home was vandalized. I feared for my family's safety. However, fueled by the support of my community and the knowledge that we were fighting for what was right, I refused to back down. I knew that we had to win, not just for ourselves, but for all those who had been victimized by hate. The trial was a spectacle, a high-stakes drama played out in the glare of the national media. The courtroom was packed with reporters, activists, and curious onlookers, all eager to witness the downfall of Karen Henderson. The prosecution, led by David Thompson, presented a compelling case, meticulously laying out the evidence of Karen's racism and her calculated plan to harass and intimidate my family. They called witnesses who testified to Karen's hateful remarks and her pattern of discriminatory behavior. They presented irrefutable evidence of her membership in a white supremacist group and her online activities promoting hate speech. The most damaging evidence came from Karen herself. On the witness stand, she was evasive, defensive, and often contradictory. Under David's relentless questioning, her carefully constructed facade began to crumble, revealing the ugly truth beneath. She initially denied being a racist, claiming that she simply had concerns about our lifestyle and its impact on property values. But when confronted with her own words, her own online activity, she could no longer deny the hateful ideology that fueled her actions. She tried to justify her behavior, claiming that she was protecting her community from undesirables. She even had the audacity to suggest that we were somehow responsible for her actions, that our very presence had provoked her into committing the crime. But the jury was not buying it. They saw through her lies, her excuses, her pathetic attempts to deflect blame. They saw her for what she truly was, a bitter, hateful bigot who had allowed her prejudice to consume her. The defense, on the other hand, put on a weak and unconvincing case. They tried to portray Karen as a victim, claiming that she was suffering from mental health issues and that her actions were not motivated by hate but by fear and anxiety. They called a psychologist to testify that Karen suffered from situational anxiety, and that her racist remarks were simply the result of stress and pressure. But the psychologist's testimony was easily discredited, and the jury saw it as a desperate attempt to deflect responsibility. The defense's attempts to portray Karen as a victim backfired spectacularly. The more they tried to excuse her behavior, the more the jury seemed to despise her. By the time the trial ended, it was clear that Karen had no chance of winning. Her lies and her hate had been exposed for the world to see. The jury deliberated for only a few hours. When they returned to the courtroom, the tension was palpable. I sat beside Sarah, holding her hand tightly, as the foreperson read the verdict. Guilty. Guilty on all counts. A collective gasp filled the courtroom. Karen Henderson, the HOA president who had dared to dump cement into my family's pool, was found guilty of hate crime, vandalism, and violation of civil rights. A wave of relief washed over me. After months of uncertainty, of fear, of relentless legal battles, justice had finally been served. The legal system had worked, proving that even in the face of blatant prejudice, the truth could prevail. The sentencing hearing was equally powerful. David Thompson delivered a passionate plea, emphasizing the severity of Karen's crimes and the lasting impact they had had on my family and the community. He argued that Karen's actions were not just a personal attack but an assault on the very principles of equality and justice upon which our nation was founded. He urged the judge to impose the maximum sentence, sending a clear message that hate crimes would not be tolerated. Karen, in a last-ditch effort to avoid prison, offered a tearful apology. She claimed that she was deeply sorry for her actions and that she had learned a valuable lesson about tolerance and understanding. But the judge was not swayed. He listened intently to David's arguments, considered the evidence, and delivered a scathing rebuke. He condemned Karen's actions as despicable and reprehensible, stating that they were motivated by pure, unadulterated hate. He emphasized the importance of sending a strong message to deter others from committing similar crimes. He then sentenced Karen Henderson to 5 years in prison, the maximum sentence allowed under the law. In addition, he ordered her to pay restitution to my family for the cost of the pool repairs, the emotional distress, and the attorney's fees. As Karen was led away in handcuffs, a collective cheer erupted from the courtroom. The crowd outside, which had been waiting anxiously for hours, broke into spontaneous applause. The news spread like wildfire, sparking celebrations across the country. People from all walks of life rejoiced at the victory for justice and equality. With Karen Henderson behind bars, the HOA swiftly removed her from her position as president. A new board was elected, committed to fostering a more inclusive and welcoming community. The racist covenants that had been lurking in the neighborhood's bylaws were swiftly removed, ensuring that all residents were treated with respect and dignity, regardless of their race or background. The process of rebuilding our lives was not easy. The emotional scars of Karen's hate ran deep. My children were initially afraid to go outside, fearing that something bad would happen again. Sarah struggled with feelings of anger and betrayal. I found myself constantly on edge, hyper-aware of my surroundings. But we refused to let Karen's hatred define us. We were determined to reclaim our lives, to rebuild our home, and to move forward with hope and resilience. The community rallied around us, offering support, encouragement, and practical assistance. Volunteers helped us clean up the mess in our yard, repair the damage to our property, and rebuild our pool. Local businesses donated materials and labor, eager to show their solidarity. The outpouring of generosity was overwhelming, a testament to the power of human kindness. I learned that even in the face of unimaginable hate, there was always more love and compassion in the world. We decided to turn the concrete-filled wasteland into something beautiful and meaningful. We hired a local artist to create a mosaic mural on the side of the pool, depicting scenes of diversity, inclusion, and hope. The mural became a symbol of our community's resilience, a reminder that even out of the darkest of moments, something beautiful could emerge. We also became actively involved in local organizations dedicated to fighting racism and promoting social justice. We spoke at community events, sharing our story and encouraging others to stand up against hate. We worked to educate our children about the importance of diversity and tolerance, teaching them to treat everyone with respect and kindness. Over time, the emotional wounds began to heal. My children regained their sense of security and joy. Sarah rediscovered her passion for architecture. I found renewed purpose in my work and in my advocacy for civil rights. The cement incident, as horrific as it was, ultimately transformed our lives for the better. It taught us the importance of standing up for what is right, of refusing to be silenced by hate, and of embracing the power of community. We never forgot what Karen Henderson had done. Her actions served as a constant reminder of the prejudice that still exists in our society. But we refused to let her hate consume us. We chose to focus on the positive, on the overwhelming support we had received, and on the progress we had made towards building a more just and equitable world. Our pool, eventually rebuilt and sparkling, became a symbol of our triumph over hate. And every time I saw my children laughing and splashing in its crystal-clear water, I knew we had won. The memory of the event served as a constant reminder of the work that still needed to be done. The HOA, once a source of anxiety and oppression, evolved into a symbol of unity. The entire ordeal had exposed the cancerous underbelly of racism that had been festering in the neighborhood, and, with Karen's downfall, the community was finally able to begin healing and moving toward genuine integration.